this is something that people should know about. Look up, I'm going to sound like a total kook right now. Look up Operation Northwoods. There's an article on Wikipedia, and basically, like, really quick, what Operation Northwoods is. It was a plan that
That's a porn site, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all bush all the time. That's it.
Northwoods?
All Northwoods, baby. Northwoods. The finest Midwest bush you will find. Guaranteed. I don't operate it, I just put ads there. So please click on the ads.
I'm an honest
yeah.
to God supporter of this site. Please sponsor me.
Much like Sex in the City in San Pellegrino. Water product placement. Operation Northwoods. NorthwoodsBush.com.
Nintendo, send me a Nintendo Switch 2, please.
Please, Nintendo.
Nintendo, I love you.
But so Operation Northwoods was basically this thing that I believe the Central Intelligence Agency cooked up, and it was ratified by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This is back in like 1963 or whatever.
You said Joint Chiefs of Staff. That's funny.
Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Joint guys.
The Joint Boys.
the Joint Boys. Yo,
Joint
what if
Boys
we
of
like?
Staff.
What if we like blamed it all on the Cubans? What if we blamed the gay on the Cubans? It's like, that's fucking brilliant.
Send the gay over there.
Write that down.
Yeah.
Make Cuba the gay.
The big gay.
Make Cuba the gay. And pass it off to JFK. He's like, what the fuck?
What am I
This is
looking at?
fucking brilliant. No, but they actually did cook up this plan called Operation Northwoods, and the idea, very simply, was this. They were like, listen, Russia is forming very close ties with Cuba. That's a really bad thing, because basically if they establish a formal diplomatic relationship, which we should never allow happen, good thing it never will, blah, 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 we don't want it to happen, so what we're going to do is we need to stop it. And the only way we're going to stop it is, like, the American people, we're already in Vietnam. We've been out of World War II only for, like, 17 years. They don't want to go to war. So what we need to do is we basically need to, like, carry out a series of attacks. We need to have them be real and simulated. And we basically need, like, we're going to, like, shoot up post offices, like, blow up military bases. We're going to attack, like, civilian population centers. And we're going to blame it all on, like, Cuban agents. And that will get, we're going to have people in the press say, like, oh, look at this. Like, they're going to push it all to the top of the papers and the newscasts. And, like, we, like, that is going to give the American people, like, a quote-unquote reason to be like, oh, well, now we need to invade Cuba because they're clearly attacking us and blah, blah, blah. And they brought this, like, the Joint Chiefs of Staff ratified this. So they were like, yeah, totally cool. Awesome. We're going to do that. And keep in mind, it was simulated, so some of these things would be staged. Like, literally using, like, actors. Others would be real. So they're actually, like, blowing shit up, and they're possibly killing people, and they're basically just like, well, whatever it takes to get the job done.
Right.
And they brought this plan to JFK. And JFK was like, no way. Like, we're not doing this. This is a horrible idea. Like, no. He was probably just, like, sick of the CIA at that point. He did not like them. And fun fact, in that document, there's actually, most of the document, literally, like, it's like 15 pages. You can read online in probably, like, an hour.
It's only 15 pages?
It's super, super small. It's
what the heck?
Very, very short. But
is it literally, like, put guy there, blow him up? Question mark?
Yeah, it is super line by line, like, this is what we want to do, this is how we're thinking of carrying it out, and this is an example. And literally the example they use, most of the document is dedicated to the one example of, like, this is how you would fake an airplane hijacking and a subsequent crash. Like, well, this is how we would switch out the planes, this is, like, how we would get, feed the story to the press, this is where the crash plane would land, and blah, blah, blah.
Speaking of Twin Towers.
Yeah.
I was watching this show recently.
We were watching.
You
were. I joined.
You kind of piggybacked on my.
I totally did.
Very cool, very woke show watching.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy? Sex in the City is what I was watching. What we were watching.
Yeah.
And it's funny that show obviously has the towers in it, but I think the real towers are the two schnozzes of Mr. Big and a Carrie Bradshaw.
And they collide all the time.
And they crash all the time.
They crash all the time, baby. Yeah. The CIA has nothing to do with it.
No.
And that's on Operation Northwoods.
Go there. It's the ancillary document there.
But I think that was the starting script for...
Like, they really wanted to talk about Sex in the City, but they didn't have that much time because their homework was due.
Yeah, exactly. In
so
1962,
they had to submit that.
They were like, I fucking love Carrie. You're such a Carrie. Yeah, Brian Jones, General, you're such a Carrie.
It's so strange, but that is, like, the funnest thing to do is, like, Who's the Samantha in the group?
It is like, and because the funny thing is like we're like the whole reason we're doing this like second episode is we're talking about like incels, basically like incel culture and like its ties to culture and like finance and stuff. And we didn't watch like Sex and the City. Like you didn't show me it in the sense of like, oh, we're gonna do this for the podcast.
No. I just thought it was interesting because I feel like
it's a great show.
It's a great show.
Yeah, it really is.
Not super. I mean, it's interesting because it is a show about women, which I feel like was probably the first big show.
Huge turn off for me.
Obviously,
a show for women.
No, I mean, it's interesting because obviously the year is 2025, and I'm just watching it now, and this was something that HBO touted as like one of its two big shows, that and The Sopranos.
Really? Yeah. I did not realize.
Those are the two best-selling... Actually, the Sex and the City outsold The Sopranos.
It's, historically speaking, at least, I think in the past, like, 70-odd, like, 80-odd years since the Second World War, like, women are usually the more, they vote with their dollar. They really, really do, like, more so than men, honestly. And I think I can see, like, why. The Sex and the City, I hated the first 10 minutes of it. I was like, this is decadent... Apologies for my language. Decadent, whorish, insipid, vapid nonsense that is like affirming the worst traits of humankind.
Well, that's why you watch past the 10 minutes.
That is why you watch.
That is true of any show that you just like. You come into it and are like, "This is gay."
Yeah, this is like the because a lot of it initially on its heads just seems like like you were. I think you started me on basically like the 6th episode or something of the first season because you just started watching it, right?
I did, yeah.
So like I was like coming in, you'd already been watching it and you were like, we hadn't even talked about it. Like this was like a spur of the moment.
No, it's literally just I'm tired and would like to watch some television,
some fun stuff.
Yeah,
before we record, basically.
Before
we set up and I was like ragging on it for the first 10 minutes. Like I was angry. Like I was
like, Jesus Christ,
this is terrible. This is awful. But the more I watched it, and I think like the thing that I kept repeating, which I do think is true, is like it is very hard in that show to tell when it is being sincere and when it's being tongue-in-cheek, which is the sort of appeal because it allows you to live in this fantasy limbo of like you can watch the show and actually love it unironically because you're getting this catharsis through these like these characters, these women who are basically like I'm dating this guy and like he wants me to give him a blowjob. I don't like doing that, but then in like another episode, she's like, I think I want to have a threesome. It's like, dude, like on its surface,
make up your mind, Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte.
Which one? What do you want?
To any Charlottes out there,
make
up your friggin' mind.
And honestly, I think there's actually very few Charlottes in the world. Like
pure of heart, like simple, good, like
I just feel like I want to be generous and say most people are more interesting than that.
Charlotte's a sweetheart. Charlotte's a kind soul.
But she's fucking square.
Empty. She's kind of the most dude. I have to level with you.
Yeah.
Man to man, bro to bro. Talk about Sex and the City.
Okay.
I think Charlotte's the hottest, bro. I think Charlotte's the prettiest. I think she's very pretty.
Really?
I do.
I think Samantha's the prettiest.
Really?
Yeah. She's got high cheekbones. And
she does.
She's got very worldly traits about her.
She's got this world-weary attitude, but it translates to this kind of like vivacity.
And she's very punchy, and like I like her character the most. Like I like her character by far the most.
She may actually be the funniest of the group.
Oh,
is consistently the funniest.
By far, she's almost like she herself is like the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to everybody's Hamlet.
That is such like an elevated take, but it's very true. Actually, she's very much like the side character who is like observing the.
Right.
Well, she's not totally a side character, but she's very much like.
That's the thing. She's
most
not
likely to have
not a side character.
Yeah.
But she's by and large, it feels like she's a foil to these other like normies.
Like Carrie is very much the Patrick Bateman of the group. She's very much like the. She is Patrick Bateman.
She is Patrick Bateman.
She's like obsessed. She has like everything is weirdly going right for her. Like she's writing this I'm sorry, but she's
Right.
writing this fucking insipid sex and health column.
You don't know it's insipid. Maybe it's helpful.
It's not like, and I will say the show actually surprisingly has like some little, because I think again this is what's hard. Like I think this is what's fascinating about the show is you can watch it and be in this fantasy limbo because like again if a show is constantly like am I being sincere or am I being tongue in cheek?
Yeah.
And basically like the idea with it is like, well, I can watch this show for the catharsis of the fantasy, but because it's also sometimes so like outrageous or kind of, to be quite honest, like fucking stupid or vapid, like I can also make fun of it, but that also might be the point of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also don't know when the show is being earnest and when the vapidity is actually real or if it's put on.
Yeah,
it's
and
fascinating.
I think it depends on how charitable you want to be to the show because
Yeah.
like for me, I even fall into this trap of like I thought these people were all supposed to be archetypes. Like, Samantha is the one who fucks. Carrie is the one who writes.
Yeah.
Miranda is chronically unhappy in her relationships because she's, like, role play. Like, she's a woman in a man's world, and so she kind of has to wear the mantle of a man, kind of.
Yeah.
And
that's well said.
Charlotte is a peevish, Amish, innocent, whatever, uninteresting person.
Yeah, she's the sweetheart of the group.
Yeah, that's the more generous take, I think. But,
of course.
Like, I hate her.
Do you actually?
Yeah, I like dislike that personality trait because
I can see.
There's
that.
like I don't know. It's like because to me it just plays as like I'm better than you. Like I have this morality or something.
I think at the very least, the show itself, like I would say, it's actually embodied through Charlotte the most. But you could say this through a lot of the characters. Is like what pissed me off initially was like this idea of like this is all life is. This is the hardest life gets, is deciding whether or not I want to suck a guy's dick. Like,
right.
Like in between sipping Cosmos and like, oh, this cute guy that I randomly met invited me to this super cool club and he's a writer and he wants to have sex with me. But there's this other guy like who also wants to have sex with me. And like, it's
and
like
he's also super rich.
And he's also super, he's a finance guy and he's hot and he's rich and he wants to fuck me. But
and I'm hot.
But
I'm kind of
I'm hot, but I'm also like witty and like funny and like, like, so it's
that's the other thing too, is that
the story of our life.
I don't know, except for all the hot men who want to fuck me, they
that's true.
do not exist. But
no hot guys want to fuck me.
But that's the thing in the real world. Like I kind of feel like the Charlottes are like that, but I mean, even in the show, Charlotte is not like interesting. She doesn't have any punchy lines. All the good lines go to either Carrie or Samantha.
I would say Miranda has some good ones too. Miranda
she's some like good B plot, I think.
Yeah,
but I don't think she gets any like good lines in. Like
Miranda's very underutilized. I feel like she's not like, she's just kind of like the bro of the group. She's like their closest to like a male best friend.
Exactly,
that sounds like bad, but like it's true. Like she's their,
because there's I don't know if you saw enough of it. There's Stanford, I think is his name.
Yeah, the gay guy.
Friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's just Carrie's friend, so he's not like a proper
he's not in the orbit.
He's not in the orbit.
Yeah, and like it's a show about ladies for ladies, written by ladies.
Yeah.
As far as I understand. So like, yeah, like you can't have an actual man in the group because it defeats the purpose. It's supposed to feel like
it doesn't defeat the purpose.
It does. It's supposed to feel like girl time all the time. Like it's supposed to be like the ladies are the most important. Like, and I don't even mean this in a bad way, because there are plenty of like shows where like guys are the most important part in New York City or Los Angeles. Like Entourage is probably a good example, right? Like it's like all about the dudes. I've only seen like half an episode of Entourage.
I fucking hate that.
Yeah,
show.
I bet it's terrible.
That is like it. I don't know. I think it is. I guess you could call it an analog to Sex and the City, but unfortunately, like the lives of rich actors who are established are so unrelatable and therefore so uninteresting to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I went to this nice, expensive gym and then I fucked the yoga teacher.
Yeah.
And then I had to go home and eat my expensive protein drink and then fuck the woman who made that drink.
Yeah.
And it was a hard day.
As much as like, which is really funny because it's like, in a way, Sex and the City is that, but I think in a way as well, because there's like that the feminine take and the sensibility of it is kind of like, it is like sweeter and more digestible, because I and again, like, I've never seen Entourage, and like
I've seen a couple. I mean, I'm referencing a particular episode.
I can't.
Where he fucks a yoga teacher, and I'm just like,
and I'm assuming that like it's obviously probably a show that's buoyed entirely by a male bravado fantasy of like,
exactly.
What if I was a rich guy
Yeah.
in Hollywood and I got to, and like it's like awesome, I get to fuck all the time.
Oh
you know,
my
I'm also
God.
rich, and like people love me, and I gotta, like everywhere I go, like I either gotta sign a movie deal or beat off the hot ladies,
all these
or they
women,
beat me off.
Stop! It's too much.
Which Sex and the City is somewhat like that, but ironically, I feel like it actually probably would work better. And I don't even necessarily know why, because like,
oh, I know why.
Why do you think?
I think it's because there are hundreds of shows like Entourage where
It's
big
just about
fancy
dudes
men
being awesome.
fuck all the women.
Yeah, it's true.
And there's one show like Sex and the City, which is called Sex and the City.
That's very well put. Yeah, it's true. It's unique unto its own.
Yeah, because I mean, how many show? Like, I was gonna when I first was saying why you should watch it, I was like, it's like Girls, but like it's like the Friends of Girls, like the Friends the show.
Yeah,
where it's
that's
like
well put.
like a early '90s take on that concept of like like women just. It's trying to emulate like real conversations women have.
Yeah, it's very much like I mean, I would say it's very much sort of doing like, maybe some people would think this is giving it too much credit, but it's very much like a Jane Austen indie.
Yeah,
it's like it's examining the
might
psychology
be too much credit, but
of like a woman, but focusing on like the mundane aspects that like many women are aware of in their lives, or that they may not have actually been aware of until somebody pointed it out to them.
Shit.
Right?
Who is that guy in Pride and Prejudice? Mr.
The guy who plays Tom Haverford? Are you thinking of
No, not the guy who plays him. What's his name?
His name is
Downtree? No.
No, you're not thinking. Are you thinking of the one with Keira Knightley?
That is the modern one, but
you're thinking of Colin Firth then.
Yeah, but who's he play?
He plays Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Who is kind of like, you could see Mr. Big in a way as, I suppose, being an analog for Mr. Darcy.
Oh my God, completely.
Potentially, but
except
Mr. Darcy's supposed to be like elevated and educated and sort of like Mr. Darcy's basically supposed to be like goth, like he's gothic. He's like very. I don't even mean that in like the Hot Topic like way. I mean that in like he's supposed to be like removed, like he doesn't dance, he doesn't really show affection, like
he's like puritanical.
Yeah, in a way, for a reason, right? Like he's, he is supposed to be like,
because they're trying to build up suspense. I mean,
between Carrie and Mr. Big, or are you talking about in Pride and Prejudice?
No, I mean, I think Mr. Big is more of just like a normal guy, but in like in Pride and Prejudice, he looks like a big fuck. He looks like a bad guy for a lot of it.
Darcy, you're talking about? Yeah, he does.
Yeah. And he looks mean and unpleasant. And then you find out actually she was tricked and like...
Well, because the whole joke of like Pride and Prejudice, right, is like you think like, oh, they're one or the other, of like he's Pride and she's Prejudice, or she's Pride and he's Prejudice, but in reality it's both. Like they both share those virtues and those flaws.
Is that what that is?
In a way, yeah, because like she is like, he is prideful because he's like, I don't associate with this, I don't do these things, like blah blah blah, and she's prejudiced because like, oh, like, well, he thinks he's so high and mighty and blah blah blah, but she's also
prejudiced against his pride, and his pride is prejudiced against her prejudiced pride.
Yeah. Jane Austen could have written it better. It's actually the very ending line of the book. Actually, just to spell it out for in case there are any men reading this book. Yeah. But let's talk about, because I think like Sex and the City is actually a perfect jumping point. Just to talk. We can talk about it for like 30 minutes, and then we can go eat some shrimp scampi. I say. Sure. We're going on a tequila.
I think we absolutely have to just get through this, and then we can eat. That's how we reward ourselves.
Amen, brother. Amen. All right. Take a short tequila break. We'll be back in a moment.
We'll be back in 5.
Bye.
The guy who walked away from it.
Always save. I saved it before. I just had to make sure. All right.
Okay.
So
We are back.
We're back. We're freshened up with
It's
some
still hot up here.
Takiki. It is very hot up here.
I made these extra gross so that we pace ourselves.
Cheers to
I
being
was
extra
gonna
gross.
put
for
weird
pacing.
stuff in there like cilantro and maple syrup, but
Damn. Well, maybe next time.
I was like, I'll save it. Might as well not.
Save for the food. But we were talking about Sex in the City,
Yeah.
Entourage,
Let's
and
get back to it.
I cobbled together this fucking stupid term called Incelonomics, which is basically like the study of the
They
idea
call that a portmanteau.
a portmanteau of incels and economics, and the idea that basically trying to, because if you look up like incels in finance or incels and the economy, you do get like some papers
Oh, really?
about it's affecting labor unions, like people dropping out of the workforce, or like the idea of how these young men who feel like they've been left behind by society, like with the manosphere, like it has grown in net value. I think it went from like roughly, from my really basic research that I did, like from like basically around $1 million or slightly under in 2009 to now like $400 million.
Wait, what do you mean the net value of the manosphere?
So like the manosphere being the collection of basically like anything from like pickup artists to like
Oh my
self-help
God,
gurus,
really?
like Andrew Tate.
How
to,
much?
It's like $1 million. It was like around $1 million in 2009 because
sure.
that's usually when they say that the manosphere as a term evolved.
Yeah,
Around the time of the book that you're reading, Men Who Hate Women. Like Men Who Hate Women. I think that book was published in like 2009 ish.
Okay.
So they say around that time, 2009, the manosphere, pickup artists, all this shit was like around $1 million, slightly under, and it's grown. I think to something. It's either like, I know this is a huge disparity. It's either like $117 million right now, or it's like $400 million. It's super hard.
I feel like
to keep track
$400
of
million
it.
is right because, I mean, obviously there's like the Andrew Tates,
Yeah.
and then it's almost like a MLM scheme
Mm-hmm.
where you have Andrew Tate at the top, and then all these other supplicant people who are essentially replicating the model,
Yeah.
where they're gonna train you how to put your woman in line, or how to straight up pimp her out, or just how to yell at people,
How to dominate women and men. And,
and also how to
yeah.
just be a big fathead
a
jerk.
big business guy,
Yeah,
basically.
and like, what's so crazy is that like so much of this starts with like the veneer of like a rich lifestyle, and then you sell your tape on like, I mean,
Yep.
this used to be like I will show you how to make $1 million in a day or some shit, and it's a guy posing. He rented a mansion for a day. He took a picture
Yeah.
with some attractive women and a picture with a private jet.
Yep.
And because you signal all this wealth, you assume he owns all these things, or she owns all these things. I mean, I'm going to say he because predominantly it is a he who is selling this kind of content to other males. And then you just make this connection that like, okay, well, I'm poor, or I'm single, and I hate my mom.
Yeah.
That is almost always
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, always. Honestly, yeah.
And I'm trying to escape this tragic reality.
A cycle of both, like, of poverty, both financial and, like, spiritual or psychological.
Yeah, and people fucking dig their claws into this shit. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like $50 per month, I think, is Andrew Tate's rate for his pimping and hose degree.
Yeah, exactly. The pimping and hose MD.
No.
Yeah.
That's what he calls it. It's
The
a
pimping-
PhD.
Is it actually pimping
Yes,
and hose
pimping
degree?
and hose degree.
That's so cool.
Or
dude.
pimping hose degree, something like that.
I mean, like, I will say, I think, like, one of the reasons this is difficult to track, especially in recent years, is mainly because, like, a lot of the transactions, especially for like the Andrew Tate type stuff, happen through cryptocurrency. So it becomes very difficult to actually track because you don't know how much people are actually donating or giving, because a lot of these platforms begin accepting cryptocurrency.
It's not impossible to track crypto.
It's not impossible. I like had some numbers on it. I genuinely can't recall.
Like,
I think
people's
like,
wallets have a discrete location.
I know there's like the ledger.
Track those exchanges, right?
Yeah, and I think, like, from what I'm recalling, like, this is tangentially related, but, like, just for example, the self-improvement market circa 2024 was valued at like $48 billion, and it's growing. And that's
The what?
That's globally, the self-improvement market. So that's
yeah.
Now, to be fair, that's not just the manosphere.
No,
That's
of course.
You know, that's everything from like women who are like, oh, skincare, to people who are like, oh, I want to, you know,
not have ADHD. I understand.
Yeah.
It's not just, but dude, I feel like that market share of like genuine self-help is actually quite small. Because like, you know, I mean, there was that guy yesterday who was talking about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which has been around and for a while, and like, honestly, God bless him, love him.
Yeah,
I know that guy, and he's my friend.
It's a great dude.
But he's wrong. I'm sorry, I just gotta say this. Self-help is, there's no such thing as self-help, obviously, dingus, because you're reading the book to get more education, so why don't you just get a proper book on the thing it is you want to learn or heal about yourself?
The problem is you have to go to the source, which is usually like older, like I'm talking older books like that are a couple centuries old that like which is why a lot of those guys in the manosphere will go to like
totally
they'll go to like
straight
Marcus
to the
Aurelius
Bible.
or the Bible.
Oh my god,
or shit
like
that.
Stoicism has been
exactly.
totally co-opted,
and that's something I should have like looked into, honestly. But one of the reasons that I was interested in this, like Incelonomics, like for me, and honestly anybody who ever like listens to this, like please like collect data on this. I'm genuinely very interested, because like what got me interested was this idea that, you know, they say right now 63% of men in the United States alone under the age of 30 list themselves as like single or unmarried, you know, that they're not having a girlfriend, basically.
But you know what,
historically that's wildly anomalous. Like it is not a regular pattern. I was like looking into this stuff, like the reason it got me interested.
It's got to be regional though, man.
Like I think it is definitely culture and context dependent. The interest for me is like, and I was trying to do scattered research through like Google searches and ChatGPT, but the idea for me principally of like Incelonomics is like, can you basically chart like, are there correlating factors between the amount of like, specifically the amount of like men in poverty or who would call themselves like impoverished, out of work, you know, as you would say, like frictionally unemployed, who are also like single, we would say, who are also, you know, basically like discontent with the system, and based on these 3 like principles, like could you look at prior, you know, major moments in history within the past 200 years? So I was looking at like the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution as examples of like, I was really trying to find this shit. And it's like super hard because like leading up honestly to the modern era post World War II, super hard to find like numbers of guys who are like would list themselves as single or unmarried, mainly because actually a lot of young men would usually be married by the time that they were in their late 20s or early 30s. It's only been a modern development within the past 80 years post World War II that we've had this growing class of people who are like that.
Also, listen.
Yeah.
Super quick. I just had a really intrusive thought. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Have you ever thought about getting a teardrop tattoo on your face?
Yeah, well, I've only killed one person, so okay. I guess I could fill it in.
It's just like, I was looking at you for some reason. I was just like, I think James is the only... You're the only person I know who could fucking rock that.
I don't think, like, dude, that's like a gang. Like, you have to have.
No, we had a guy come to the plant store and he had fucking like 30 teardrops on his face.
Dude, you know that like if they're filled in, supposedly that means that he's killed those people. Right?
Oh
like,
yeah, blah, blah, blah,
that's like the sign. That's the sign.
Sure,
that's from whatever. That's what I've heard on.
And if it's not filled in, they were just merely put in a coma,
or like hurt, or I don't know. Like he like I have no idea. Like I can't remember the exact.
I hurt my mama. Does that mean I get a teardrop?
Well, you could if you wanted to, but then if you
not physically, obviously, but you know,
psychologically. Yeah, of course.
She hates my opinions.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry. Okay, we were talking about baby boomers, and
the prior generations leading up to this one.
The thing is also like I think fewer people probably have children when economic times are harder. Yes. So there's got to be this relationship between things are super good, like in the 50s, 60s, and then things got shitter and shitter.
Yeah.
And progressively fewer and fewer people had children. I think that's got to be, I mean, just logically, like, we can't afford a child or whatever. Because childcare is some crazy
expensive.
high
It's like millions
figure.
it's like literally millions of dollars to have like one child, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you calculate it all out from like the beginning of birth to 18-year-old.
Right, yeah.
To even sending them in the current like dynamic, sending them to college
it's
for 4 years.
millions, but it is.
I think it's over $1 million.
I think it is over $1 million too. Assuming you're gonna like. I mean, again, it depends where.
Yeah.
Depends. I think certainly if you're gonna live in the city and you're gonna not go with the public school option, which realistically speaking, unless your kid is like super talented technically and they get into one of these like super duper schools.
Yeah, or they get a scholarship or some shit like that, basically, right? Like
to help
then, with the financial.
Then you have to go private. And if you go private, you are up a shit's creek if you're just like a normal working class person, because you have no options. There's nowhere you can send them in the city. No, like nowhere. They are all unequivocally shit.
Private schools or
Public schools.
Yeah.
Private schools, obviously, you have your pick of the litter, but like, it's like at a minimum, like I think like $32K a year. Or $32K a semester.
My sister works for a school, and like the tuition, and this is literally a school. It's not
Which
like
one?
a full school. I honestly, I feel bad. I can't remember the name. And even if I did know it, I maybe I shouldn't say. I don't know, but I know for a fact that the tuition she's told me is like $60,000 a year per kid. $60,000. That's more than I've ever made in my life. Like not grand total, hopefully.
No, I understand,
But,
but
like,
Jesus Christ,
That's more. That's like 20,000 more than one of my highest salaries, basically, that I've made. And like that is an expense for a child that the parents are paying, and they're just like, yeah, just send the kid. And it's not even a full school. It's not like kindergarten through 8th grade. I think it's pretty much like almost like a kindergarten through like formative year, like a few grades, basically. Like they're sent there, young kids, to like.
Well, still, I mean, dude, even for a fucking year, Jesus Christ.
And what I think is really interesting is, like, again, the idea being that, like, is there an intersection we can pinpoint where, like, you have these young men who are single, who are impoverished, who are, become more and more disfranchised with a system that tells them, like, well, look at all these rewards and spoils that are going on. Like, you think, for instance, of, like, I was displaying some pretty incelish behavior when we started watching Sex and the City. I was like...
Well,
right,
I don't know if I go that far.
Okay, well...
I think, like, you can... I think you can, dislike... I think you can dislike, like, women-focused shows and not be an incel. Like, I think I had this experience with Fleabag, which I guess I need to revisit because everyone fucking loves that show.
Yeah.
But I was like, stop talking about tampons all the time. I'm over this. I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
I don't use tampons.
I don't understand. Where does it go?
Unless I'm soaking it in alcohol and boofing it. I am uninterested in tampons for their actual intended purpose.
That's the only reason I care about the price of women's feminine products. I need this for boofing. Other than that, I don't give a shit.
I don't care. Okay, I don't use it.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
I don't know. I think Fleabag was a really important show, certainly to my partner, and like, I feel like it's worth giving it a shot on that merit alone.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think you can reasonably disagree with Sex and the City, like, but like.
I would a decadence or a vapidity.
I would need
I
would need to hear that critique. Like, I think anybody can watch a show for 10 minutes and be like, ugh, not for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that was maybe your gut instinct, and that's like that's not necessarily like a concerted like incel voice telling you to dislike the show. Maybe you just have some kind of gut reaction and you're like working it through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because obviously, you sat through that 10 minutes. And now we're both fucking glued to the screen.
Yeah, we're gonna watch the second season.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
After we get done,
I'm actually eager to get off the show.
I'm so excited. I know. I'm so ready. And but I think that's what's interesting too. Is like what you're pointing out basically is like I had you and your girlfriend, who like were hanging out, we're watching the show. I had a small community around me who was basically like not like openly, but basically just like, hey, like give it a chance. Like, and you know what's nice is like neither of you were like, even if you felt it, neither of you were like, hey, like don't say that. Like, blah. You didn't shut me down. Like you let me kind of like vent. You know, like it. You know, and that was nice because I got to process like the emotion openly. And then sort of like get into it, like letting people have that little vent.
You want to say that like people are, I don't know, promiscuous or whatever? Like, I mean, honestly, they do have a lot of sex in that show.
They do. It's very
honestly,
sex.
there are like straight up like porn scenes there.
No, so. There's literally a scene where the group of women are eating gummy bears, watching a couple have sex ostensibly in the fiction of the show for an hour. Actually, they've been watching them for an hour,
just straight up voyeuring on these people.
And you can see like how someone in a different community where they're surrounded by basically like guys or members who are telling them like. They're like, look how this is the sign of like, specifically women's decadence. They don't care about you. Like these women would never fuck you. They would never love you. They would never want you. But look, this is a show produced by a major network. It's on television. It's HBO.
I think I've heard of that.
Like, they're
Habo.
They're
yeah, I know.
Habo's been around for a little bit.
I think so.
And like you know they're. It's celebrating this, you know, and I dwelt within some of these communities for a while when I was like a younger college student, like sexually frustrated and sort of like figuring my stuff out, leaving high school, like leaving the strictures of basically like, you know, authority figures or people like my parents or my whole general community. And
you were sexually frustrated in college?
I was like, yeah, I was mainly upset because it was like, we've kind of talked about this before, but it was like, I felt like I was somebody where it's like people would get to know me, and it's like ostensibly, you know, like I'm a relatively like, from what I've been told, like a relatively young, like handsome guy.
You're like a twink dream, I would call you.
I am now. In college, I had a little bit more like baby fat on me, so it was like a little bit, it was a little bit, you know. I was in a way I was like a little bit cuter and more innocent to a degree. Like I was more like but there was a frustration because like these women would approach me and I would look a certain way. You know, I looked like a preppy innocent kid, but then like they would approach me and I'd be like, "Have you ever heard of Friedrich Nietzsche?" And
no,
and then they'd be like, "Fuck, like I can't."
Well,
you know.
Unfortunately, you're still that way.
I am very much still that way.
And I meant to tell you this the other day, and I say this with love. I think that people find philosophy exhausting, and I think that people find romantic adventures, intellectual romantic adventures into that space also exhausting because it's not that we live in like a less intellectual age.
No,
it's more that like people are familiar with the ideas you're talking about. It's just like the language I think can be a very distracting feature. Like, especially if you're prone to this, like, dude, people who talk about, like, wanting to resurrect Rome, I find that opinion so exhausting. And it is related to this incel idea. Because, of course, we have the resurrection of, like, the trad movement now.
Full force. People are going back to Catholicism.
Full force,
like,
yeah.
You know,
And Zoomers are apparently more religious.
That's what they say. They're expecting like Gen Z to be far more like in its arc, more right wing or more conservative, like politically or psychologically than prior generations.
I like to assume that.
Which there's asterisks though.
Yeah, I would think so because I don't necessarily think they're more theistic than previous iterations because like obviously their parents are millennials or Gen Xers or whatever
or boomers even.
No.
Yeah, technically, both my parents are technically boomers. Technically, born in the mid '60s.
Oh really?
Yeah, for real.
Wow.
Yeah. So
then you probably have like a autism, don't you?
Yeah, severely. What? No, I just witnessed Friedrich Nietzsche for Halloween. That's like totally normal. Fuck you. What are you talking about? That's not a sign of anything. I just like him a lot.
This is normal.
Yeah,
people find it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's like
you have a good point though. Yeah,
it's
you really do.
Because I hear what you're saying. Like, by the way, James, like I was exactly like you, like probably 5 years ago, where I was just like super excited, super intellectually motivated, like But the thing that just the what do you call it? The rock face I kept crashing over on was that like people find it exhausting because they haven't read what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course.
They aren't challenged by these ideas in real life, and like what you want to talk about is like this super almost metaphysical thing, or it's like
it's a romantic fantasy.
It's romantic fantasy. I mean, it's basically like, in a way, it is kind of just like a different version of Game of Thrones. Like,
it is.
It's like I just think that I don't want to discourage you from doing that because, like, I mean, listen, people, I'm sure you will eventually find people who are like-minded, but they will probably tell you, James, don't be in school that day.
Yeah. Few.
You know what I mean?
I've had a few close calls. Thanks to my quote-unquote autism-adjacent behavior, I've avoided a few tragedies.
Well, I meant that because I found out recently that, like, if you're an older guy and you do a cum in a girl, your old fucking pathetic semen...
It's not good.
It's not good.
But the thing is, too, is like, so, you know, my parents were born...
They call that stale seed.
What I will say, my parents were born in the mid-60s. I think they had me when they were in, like, their mid-30s.
Oh, they'd be fine.
What I will say is, though, is, like, what I think is really interesting, like, I don't know why, I just, like, I had to clarify that. I
don't have autism!
Dude, I clearly display, like, at least adjacent tendencies. Like, for sure.
No, but same, like...
What I'm saying, I think actually...
Even though my parents were virile as fuck.
Oh, yeah, like, just...
I was, like, actually, like, I think my mom was, like, 22 when she had me.
That's good. That's, like... Well, maybe not good, but, I mean...
it is what it is.
It's
anyway.
young. I mean, that's...
She was rebellious.
What I will say is, like, I think it's really interesting what you're saying because, like, in a way, the incel, like, philosophy is a romantic... It is a perverted romance. Like, what I think is interesting is, like, I would say that, like, you know, I do think that my romanticism is, like, what I would almost call positive romanticism, where in a way it's like it is sort of harmless in the sense, like, I did use
no one calls their romanticism negative romanticism.
No, of course not. And I would say, like, obviously what I've had to learn over the course of my life, actually very recently, because I've been trying to turn, you've seen it, like, you know, with the cards and stuff that I do, like, trying to turn something that's very, you know, sort of ideological and conceptual into, like, how do I transform this into practical value for regular people?
Right.
Like, how do I, like, basically get it to be something where people care about this thing that I really believe, but there's no immediate reason for them to care? And, like, I think the thing is, like, a lot of, like, incel-type guys are actually facing the same thing.
Absolutely.
And they live in
completely.
Like, which is why, like, you bring up Rome is, like, I think a really good point, because they live in this romantic fantasy of, like, well, if we just lived in a different, more educated, cultured time.
Right. If we could just go back.
Yeah. Then I would be the senator. I would
kill Hitler.
I would be the centurion.
I would.
Well, I
would do
Hitler.
it.
I would be
with
Hitler.
my gun.
And I would do it right.
Proper.
I would finish it. I would finish the job.
Yeah, and when would you go back to? When he was a baby? When he was a chancellor? When he was the king? When?
Well, I'm saying that a lot of these guys would be like, no, I would, like, be Hitler and I would, like, finish. Like, I'm saying, like, which is why I'm saying their romantic
Well, they
fantasy,
say that now, yeah. But, like, this is the thing. It's, like, because their nice fantasy has not played out.
Yeah.
That's the problem with fantasy, is that I feel like there's this idea of, like, I'm a good guy and I'm misunderstood.
Yeah.
And my transformation is perfectly reasonable because the girl I like doesn't want to do a fuck on me. I'm sorry, I love saying that.
It is actually, it's a great sequence of verb phrasing. Doesn't want to do a fuck on me.
I'm like addicted to that phrase.
I know, I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah. And, like, you know, it's just like, okay, what? So you have an unfulfilled fantasy, so everything you do now is perfectly excusable? Well, the truth is that, like, these people are so terminally online.
Yeah.
And they live in their own, like, circles where they're surrounded by people who are essentially of the same opinion, who also have had their fantasy violently interrupted by reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they're like, yeah, totally, dog. Like, I get you. I love you. I respect you. And, like,
yeah,
you know? I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm not, I don't know, maybe I am a bit of a Luddite. I mean, I'm wearing an Apple Watch right now and, like, checking the time. But it's like, some people are just like, they form their social circles online.
Yeah. And they stay there. That's
and
like
they stay there.
That's their community.
And this is where they get this is their, like, essentially their social scaffolding.
What we get to do here is actually, like, a true luxury. Like, the fact that, like, I'm not trying to be too romantic here, genuinely. But
no,
like,
it's really sad, but, like...
The fact that you and me and your girlfriend, like, get to hang out and, like, you know, like, do, like, recreation together, like, play tennis or... watch Sex in the City.
No, it's actually kind of rare.
It is rare. It is
because
like,
it does take. Yeah. Actually, in this day and age, it is a concerted effort.
Yeah.
To, like, go and see your friends, because there are digital alternatives that simulate similar feeling.
Well, and I think about, like, even the first. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. I was done. Yeah.
Like, to think about, you know, the first episode of this podcast, right? Like, we were almost thinking for a second, it's like, well, why don't we just do this over a call? Like, why don't we, it would be easier to do it, like, because I wouldn't have to go to Jersey, or you wouldn't have to come to East Harlem, like, but we were kind of like, nah, like, we feel like we should do this, and we've done this now.
We should sweat it out in the shit lodge that is the attic.
The podcast shit lodge. The PC SL, baby.
Classic.
Membership open.
Yeah,
for
come
a small
on,
fee.
Bye, pay me money, I am poor.
But, like,
the name.
We get to, like, it is a luxury that we get to enjoy, where it's not only, like, you know, because you can meet people who might share your interests, but the actual ability to connect one-on-one at deeper levels that is rewarding and reciprocal and, you know, gives back to each person in a way that they feel like being around the other person is not like a drain in any way, or that they, you know, just simply put, they enjoy each other's company. That is rare to genuinely find. Like,
no,
for
real.
To find true friends is rare.
By the way, after you've, as soon as you're done with education, right? Like, I mean, who doesn't point to college and is like, I kind of wish I could go back to that.
I miss, like, being in this community where it's like we all shared some similar common focus, purpose.
Oh, dang, I have to go to class. Oh, god dang, I got an 8 a.m. class.
Yeah, and you get to share that. Like, when you go out to the bars, like, it's a simple communication of, like, oh, like, what are you doing in school? What are you majoring in?
Even the conversation, the icebreakers are streamlined, and, like, it's not trite, it's not uninteresting, it's just, like, how you communicate with one another. And there's, like, a simple beauty to that, but...
There is.
You know...
But
like, dude, I mean, I don't know what it is. I think we need some psychology education here to talk about this next part, but, like, what is it in people where they find such a disconnect with their peers? Like, they can't find even a single person. Or, I don't know, I mean, obviously, Columbine was two people, right?
Yeah. You had two guys who, like, were in the same social circle. They knew each other.
They hung out.
They were, like, friends who were, like, hanging out. They were like, yeah this is rad. Like, we're shooting guns on the weekends in the mountains, and we're, like, building models of our... Like, and that's what I'm saying. That's, like, the perverse... We would say, like, the inverse photo-negative, like, incel romantic fantasy of, like, I have this romantic mission that I'm on.
One of them, I think, didn't want to, like, fully go through with it.
No, I think, like, usually the stories go that, like, one of the... Like, as always in kind of these classic stories, like,
dominant.
One of them was less, like... They were more kind of just like, I'm just kind of here for the ride, but they also got, like, swept up in, again, that romanticism. And I think that's what's really interesting, and the reason that I, like, wanted to address, even just briefly, like, the idea of Incelonomics is just this idea of basically, like, can you chart, you know, right now, this is kind of what we're facing based on some of the stats that I was reading, right? Like, yeah, we should go soon.
No. I just, like, my phone vibrates, and like a little doggy, I have to go, what do you want, phone?
Pavlovian.
And it is, the Unabomber's brother, blah, 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 speaks about...
What? Really?
Yes.
Ted's brother?
David
Kaczynski?
David Kaczynski speaks in detail about trying to win his browser back.
And that's almost, honestly, because like, and we can slowly bring this to a close in some way. But
no, I mean, I'm good. Like, it's the food is right there.
Yeah, it is.
The
right
Sex
there.
in the City is right there.
We got time. What I do think is interesting is, like, you know, the idea with Incelonomics, and honestly, Ted Kaczynski is a perfect example of this because he's venerated in those circles. Like, he's in a way like adjacent to it. Really,
yeah.
As this
he's
guy
a super insular guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be some relationship with the fact that incel is right there with insular.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's really what it's about. It's like you're a guy.
like 99% of the time.
99.999, right? A guy who is like alone with his own thoughts for far too long.
And often,
And you create, I mean, obviously, like, I'm trying to play armchair psychologist, idiot guy who, you know, is guessing at what the narrative is, but again, because, like, you're not getting fulfillment in your normal social circles,
yeah,
you're creating a narrative for why that is the case, right?
absolutely, yeah.
And of course, like, there's bullying, which is a huge problem, and we should, like, really do something about that, because bullying has to be a big component that pushes these people into their respective lockers.
Some kind of main rejection from society that
Right.
they point to is like,
But
oh, I never fit in.
A lot of times, you know, when we hear these retrospectives, they're not necessarily, like, bullying is not the be-all, end-all, because, you know, everybody gets bullied, but it's because they tried something one time with a girl they liked, and the girl said, no.
Nothing doing.
Yeah. And there's this, like, bizarre rationalization that goes on that, like, they don't understand. I'm a gentleman. It's always they think that there's this gentleman kind of figure, and it's like, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about heroes, where, like, there's this insane romanticization of anti-heroes as, like, something interesting. And, like, there's anti-heroes, I don't know, like, I guess Hellboy, who's his worst sin is being rude sometimes.
Yeah, but
you know?
he's rejected because of his looks from
Exactly.
society. Like,
But he's still a good boy at the end of the day.
And he has, like, remarkable talents that allow him to perform things that people cannot do otherwise.
But then there's anti-heroes who are...
you could say, like, Tyler Durden, or, like, you know, like
Tyler Durden is just, like, a straight-up villain.
you could say the narrator or Edward Norton's character, because, again, remember
it's
that
the same person,
Edward
right?
Norton's character has no name in the movie, right? Like, he's never given a name. He's always using a fake name. Even in the movie, the name tags that he puts when he goes to the support groups are not him. And it plays again into this, like, fantasy. And I will say, from, like, dwelling in these circles when I was in college, what I will say is, like, when you went out to the bars after reading some of these forums where it's like, oh, like, women think this way, and this is how they work, and this is how society's actually going, like, you would see, like, a guy in that frame of mind, like, who's, you know, let's say 22, and, like, reading these forums, and then would see something like Sex in the City, would be like, well, this is just, like, modern to use some really
just
bad
say it.
term.
No, of course it would, like, just be, look at these whores.
Yeah, it's like modern Goyslaw propaganda for, like, decadence and whorishness, and, like, look, the women are being, like, validated, and, like, you know, this, like, it's proof that basically the feminization of society, of male society, a society that was, in their romantic view, dominated by men, like, for a long time, has been usurped, and that they now are these, like, destined acolytes and disciples of this ancient, basically, like, story, and they're walking out to bars and they're reading these forums and they're looking at society and they're being like, it's all broken. I'm the only one who knows that the sickness is here.
Right, yeah. And of course they have to reach for a time when, you know, things were different, when intellectuals, quote unquote, were respected, when you could basically do a rape on someone.
As if ancient Rome wasn't debased.
As if they didn't invent debauchery. But I mean, this is the whole problem with the project, is like, but you let these voices speak out in these circles, and there's no moms to come in and say, Johnny, please stop wanking to
Yeah. Like anime
porn or whatever.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is the other thing too. It's just like, honestly, I feel like anime is so infantile, man-child promoting, and like it's something, I don't know. I mean, I guess I grew up with a different kind of anime where it was limited run specifically. I never got into these like super long shits like Naruto
One Piece
or the Dragon Ball Z one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think Dragon Ball Z was, I guess, as problematic.
No, there's merit. Dragon Ball Z is like a simple hero's narrative.
Right.
Like, it's very pure, like compared to some of the other ones.
They just ignore the women in that one, but
yeah, exactly.
There's downright like downplaying of women in like Naruto or One Piece because they got big titties.
Yep.
And they're always second to the men because it's their story, it's their journey, and as long as you have big titties, you can be on my ship.
And ironically, the guys who are like beating off to that, or who would follow like the 583rd episode of One Piece, or you know, something analogous to that, would look at Sex in the City and be like, "Well, this is horse decadence."
Dude,
it's
right?
Like,
exactly.
It's like, dude, if you watch like One Piece or a lot of like modern anime, it's the exact same. It's wish fulfillment. It's like it's if you
it's
make
even
that
worse
connection,
because there's
like,
no. It's not the same because the women don't even have a meaningful story. I mean, of course, some of them like probably have arcs.
Yeah.
But it's all essentially in reference to how they eventually became a supplicant of the One Piece man.
Yeah, it's all about his story, but that's the thing too. Is right, we're dealing with this fantasy that is actually infantile, juvenile. Is, I think, the exact words to put it. And like, that's not even. I'm not even necessarily like putting these guys down necessarily, mainly because it's like, I get like, you know, like with a Ted Kaczynski type, you know, there was a lot that went on, and that could honestly be like a whole episode.
Yeah, it could be. I just want to say one thing super quick.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Because like, I don't want to put all of anime down.
Yeah,
there are strong characters.
There are art pieces in anime. There are really good.
There's
anime.
Like fucking Neon Genesis
Evangelion,
where they do talk about like how this boy has a infatuation.
Yeah, it's a huge like his like Neon Genesis.
He's got a big boner.
Neon Genesis Evangelion could be,
and
like,
he does a fap.
What I think is interesting
Onakoma girl
with that specifically is like Neon Genesis Evangelion, I think, could be read as like a teenage coming of age story at multiple levels, in the sense that he's literally like, he has inherited this body from his parents that he is now forced to pilot, but doesn't know how, but at the most critical time in his life must do better than anyone could.
He's got to figure it out, and like,
but he's also not like, Shinji is not a venerable character. He's a sympathetic one.
Yeah,
but he's not like an honorable.
Doesn't Shinji also mean like newbie?
I actually don't know. I actually have no idea.
I thought Shinji means like beginner in Japanese.
Does it actually?
I thought so.
I have like no idea.
I don't either, but I'm pretty sure we can look that up.
We can look that up. But
the point is like, I love that it's really just about daddy, notice me, referring to what we were talking about earlier about how I don't have a dad. I mean, I see him again in the gas, in the fumes, of course.
Yeah.
But,
in the ancient Greek hallucination, the oracle, what the oracle provides.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I find it fascinating. Like, I don't know. There's these shorter form animes that handle these really nuanced psychological complexities so much better than check out this big titty girl. She's gonna do a suck eventually. And once that's done, we get Naruto 2.
But it just keeps going on. There's no, like, that's the thing, is like, Neon Genesis Evangelion has a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, and
26 episodes, baby.
And
that's a lot of time to tell a story, I think. Like,
Shinji means true ruler or true leader.
Oh, oops.
It can mean true heir as well.
What's the word for beginner?
Let's see here.
Nubo.
Beginner. I know, like, Ray means like 0.
Oh, really?
Rei means, which makes sense in the context of the
Who's
show.
the other one?
Asuka.
Asuka. What does that mean?
I actually don't know. Let's see. So, the word for beginner is... Okay, so it's not even related. Shoshinasha. Shoshinsha.
Okay, Shinja, Shinji.
Shoshinsha.
Shuck me, shuck you.
Asuka, Japanese meaning. Asuka means tomorrow.
Oh.
Or like a fragrance. Like it's like the...
A fragrant?
Yeah, it means like either... Common interpretations include tomorrow or fragrant. It can also mean
what
fly.
What is fragrant?
Like, it... does it... Fragrance, yeah.
So it's like... fragrant?
Asu translates to perfume, while ka...
Oh, fragrant.
No, asu translates to tomorrow. Ka refers to smell or perfume.
You said fragrant.
Fragrance, yeah. Fragrance.
Fragrant.
Fragrance. I'm sorry. Fragrance.
Fucking
Yeah. So it's basically
Mondo.
like the sense of tomorrow is what we could say.
I didn't even mean, by the way, but it's funny because
No, it's...
it just reminds me of a story, not a story, just like my grandma always used to call me a tartar.
Like the Russian sub-ethnic group?
Yeah, because my Russian was so bad. Or my grammar was so bad. And it did 0 damage to my relation to the rest of my family, which is exclusively Russian speaking. 0 damage. I always felt very confident ever since then. And she kept doing it.
You can mess up as much as you want, but it doesn't really matter because people, treat
Yeah,
you as
I mean,
such.
no,
Yeah.
I've always felt like
As a ray.
that could be its own episode too. It's just like immigrant people who are like first or second gen or whatever it is when your family first gets here, and then you have to be American and speak English as your first language, and then like.
But you're living with a family who doesn't.
It's like the bilingual rift where it's like, at the end of the day, you only dream or think in one language,
Yeah.
And I don't
Dream or think in Russian.
I don't dream or think in Russian. And also, I don't give, like, I don't know, maybe it's what helped me get over my ties to, like, Israel, too, because I feel like I tried to be this, like, Russian guy for a while.
Yeah.
And it was just such a fucking complete failure. Just, like, so many reminders that, like, that's not you. That's, like, my family would say, like, or my mom would say, like, that's not what I want for you. I want you to be American. But then she would also be like, oh, Russia, that's where all the intellectuals come from, and, like, and then there was this, like, Euro fucking jerking off shit that would happen, like, also this, like, dissing on America, where it's like, I love America, such a cute little project, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
you get that sensibility.
I was just people. Like, so for even now I'm just like, what's my opinion supposed to be?
Yeah, how are you supposed to even? But and that's the thing, right? Is like you could have fallen easily down, those kind of like incel pitfalls.
Oh my god, totally,
right?
totally. It's so easy.
And
it's so easy because it's just, and I mean, I feel like I know. I feel like I have known school shooters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think I told you this yesterday about the guy who had a problem with Legend of Korra because it was a female protagonist. I know you disagree that it's an anime, but it has the same...
It's a style.
It's the same style.
Beats to a degree, even.
Same fucking wankers are watching it, so, like, they obviously had a problem with her. I say they, it's a guy. It's not a non-binary person. It's a guy, and he, like, doesn't like Legend of Korra because he has a penis and Korra does not, so that's not me.
How can I relate?
How can I relate? I'm supposed to be the God King Emperor.
Yeah, it's supposed to be me.
It's supposed to be me represented.
I'm the protagonist, not her.
Exactly. And
I think it's
mind-boggling. Because he said to me, like, I don't think young men have enough role models in life. And I'm like, dude.
Many. Literally take... It's a buffet. It's a historical and literally, like, artistic buffet. Like, literally take your pick.
I know.
That's what I was
And
saying.
that was like 10 years ago.
That's
now.
why I think these guys, like, the thing with Incelonomics is this idea of, like, can we chart these intersections of, these characteristics I've talked about, like poverty, alienation from society, and singleness, like loneliness, essentially. And, like, are there intersections? And, again, it's difficult because historically, there's not a whole lot of records on that. And actually, historically, the situation we're living in right now is unique. Like, we're facing, at least in this country, high records of single men, many of whom, if you take, Gen Z's in, like, 26% more credit card debt than millennials were, like, at their age. Like, the current American credit card debt, like I've said before, is like $1.2 trillion.
Is that too low, by the way?
No, it should be fine.
Okay.
We can move a little closer.
No, because I've been studying the
wave,
the waveform, and it looks tiny.
I can get a little closer.
Okay.
But basically, like, the interesting thing to me is we're facing potentially a unique historical situation, but that also isn't unique, because basically, like, what has precipitated other major, we'll say, revolutions in the past is usually, even if, in the 1700s when the French and the American revolutions happened, or even in the time leading up to the Russian Revolution, like, a lot of men were, married. It was just the custom of the time where it's like, those structures were still in place. And now, post-World War II, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's fallen apart, but it's a very different, sort of type of game. And we're facing, like, 63% of men who are, single under the age of 30, who in an era where these self-help gurus, like, the self-help industry being $48 billion, and we're looking at people like Andrew Tate, Joe Rogan. We're looking at,
Is he part of the self-help?
I would say he's adjacent to the manosphere. I'm not a huge, honestly, like, I wouldn't say I'm not a Joe Rogan critic, but I also think that, like, you shouldn't give him too much power. I think he's ultimately just like a talking head. I know his audience is huge, but I also think, quite frankly, it's dwindling, and I think he's sort of
dwindling recently.
He's on his way out.
His damage is done, though.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, like, we're facing, where a lot of these guys turn to are people like Andrew Tate, or, like, business gurus like, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Did you see his stand-up, by the way?
Yeah, I heard it was bad. I heard it was not good.
Oh!
Yeah.
That is an understatement.
Which he obviously prides himself, like, one of the things he talks about a lot is, like, oh, I'm a stand-up,
dude,
like, I'm a comedian.
Literally
blah, blah.
cried on his podcast talking about how hard it was to be a guy who was accepted into the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
And
a blue. Oh. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? Like, just really quick to put like a button on some of this stuff is like we're looking at, groups of young men who, because they are suffering from a lack of community and, immediate friends who would both challenge and support them, which is an important quality, I think, in friends. They both challenge and support you, and...
Do I challenge you?
Yeah, I think you do.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You definitely make me think differently about things, and, like, even in little comments, it's like... And it might be my...
Little comments that really...
really sting. I've written all of them down in my black book. But that's the thing is like there are, and that's why there's like an ultimate tragedy to this, because there are a lot of young men who I do think are just genuinely like, to be romantic about it, like sensitive, intellectual, like types who unfortunately fall into these spaces, and then
these are just hurt dudes.
They are, and like, you know what,
and like they just need a hug.
They also, and like,
if you just gave him a hug. A non-sexy hug.
Yeah.
Because...
Don't
buddy,
give too much.
I understand you're a little horny right now because your hormones are off the charts, but...
Of course.
It's just like... They just need to be understood. And I do feel like, in a way, this is what I was, I guess, trying to say about bullying is, like, one little push like that... dude... You don't want to push the wrong bloke, because you can make a shooter out of him quite easily.
Absolutely.
And especially in states where gun access is easy,
or find ways.
My peepaw likes to go hunting or whatever,
He's got the unlocked gun
cabinet.
Yeah. And I'll just borrow some peepaws. Peepaw doesn't know what the fuck is up. Yeah.
No, it's always the same fucking story. It's like, this Danny Ghost what was it? Danny Phantom.
Danny Phantom. Yeah.
This guy just straight up got his kid a shotgun for his birthday.
Classic American
cool
birthday gift.
Yeah. Like,
but obviously not supervising.
It's like a military grade shotgun though. It's not like
this
those
is like
classic
armor
2-barrel
piercing rounds, basically.
Because
like, you could kill a cop in full body armor.
The birds need to be penetrated that
thoroughly. Yeah, listen, the morning doves are annoying the fuck. So son, you have to go out every morning with a shotgun. I better hear two things: either silence or the sound of the gun.
Yeah,
shooting the doves.
Exactly, because they wear those jackets these days.
But
I just think it's insane because like this is like to me it's like okay, I don't know my kid at all, but I knew how I was at this age, my peepog, and I mean honestly like. At a certain point, it's like it must run in the genetics because it's like
yeah,
or in the nurture because
some family line transfer.
Your dad probably also got you a shotgun, and I'm going to be a little cruel here, but if his dad went to school, he probably would have done a shooting too. It's just the truth. Because he probably felt frustrated at some point too, but instead of taking it out on his classmates, he got to take it out on a woman because that was what was socially acceptable.
Yes.
So in a way,
the
trad wife movement is just trying to stop school shootings.
Yeah, well, yeah.
By putting all that aggression on...
channeling it into this...
into the domestic...
don't worry, because there's this group of girls who are contingency parallel
you can just
to the manosphere.
rape them, beat them, and that's how you get your frustration out, essentially.
And I think, ultimately, a lot of these young men, I was talking about, you're going after the bars. I'm speaking from, honestly, to be kind of a little bit raw here, I'm speaking from personal experience.
Go be raw.
Where you're reading these dumb fucking forums, and you're reading this, data that they've collected, and blah, blah, blah. And maybe there's some kind of validity in the lead is buried, but ultimately what they're doing is they get to feel like they have a purpose, because ultimately what we're talking about is young men who don't feel like they have a purpose. There's no frontier to explore. They're not going to space. They're not going to the deep ocean. They don't feel like society has a place for them. So their ultimate goal in life, as they see it socially, is to get a girlfriend. In a highly socialized society, it's basically you have to achieve the ultimate goal, which is finding somebody who cares about you, who's a woman. And then they pervert that into well, I have to through things like Andrew Tate, or I would even say Gary Vaynerchuk.
Well, the perversion happens when they don't find the girl, or they find the girl and the girl rejects them.
Yep. Yeah.
And then they have this strange sense of but she's a girl. And she must say yes to me.
She has to
if
say
she's
yes.
saying no, she must be ill.
That's a sign of something societally wrong.
Exactly.
It's not me. It's
no.
It's society.
It must be her.
And then that's how you get these Ted Kaczynski.
And as soon as you make that leap,
yep,
you're gone because
you're submerged in the Duke Harkonnen black bile pool, where you're basically come out this ball bloated, gross, motherfucker.
No, but for real,
yeah, I've been forged in the bile of the hate,
Yeah, but actually,
that's what it is. Actually,
because something I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't really have I was a weird kid in high school for sure.
Yeah.
But
you found your way.
No one bullied me, and I didn't have sex in high school, and I was kind of bullied for that. People called me gay in high school.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was really just because I don't know. I feel because I went the same school I went to since first grade, so it was just kind of really cliquey. So you just. If you were a weird guy, then you could you could make out with the weird people, but no one wanted to make out with each other because it's just
because
everybody is weird,
equally weird,
and it's just so it's just a mess. And then obviously I got to college and it was a different story, but
And I fucked hard.
And then I fucked as hard as I
fucked
could.
so hard, actually, yeah. Switch flips, yeah.
No, but seriously, it's
Yeah.
just like, sometimes, you're just like in a weird place. But
Absolutely.
the thing is like,
Yeah.
like the I like to assume that I'm not that different from the normal person.
It's hard to tell.
In the sense that, like, I don't know, I don't talk to a woman I like and then just assume that this is my destined partner.
Yeah.
And that if she rejects me, that, like, I'm destined for a life of misery.
But
right?
if you're a lonely, isolated young person, it's like you look at every potential connection as salvation.
If you're like fixated on someone, if you're like basically, you don't have. I mean, this is really the only way to think about it. If you don't have a life, like if this is the only person you can think about, you're in like a scarcity mindset or whatever.
Yeah, and so any connection you can find that's relatively, even immediately positive, regardless of context, is like, oh, this must be the one that's going to save. It's the rope that's pulling me out of, like, I feel like I'm in the...
It's not that. It's I feel like you do this, like, idolization of one person.
And I think, like, that idolization, like, what I'm ultimately, in some cases, trying to say is, like, connecting it with, like, Ted Kaczynski and this, like, this, like, quote-unquote incel style fantasy, this romantic fantasy of, like, oh, if only things were different, right? It's like, and I will say, on the record, I think actually Ted Kaczynski had some points about, like, technology and the dehumanizing effects and the effects of, like, a modern society.
Okay, but...
how it alienates people.
You want to do a bomb about it?
No, and that's the problem, is, like, but the problem ultimately is, like, people will look at that, young, isolated people will look at that and be like, oh, he was totally right. Like, we should just bomb society either back into a place
bomb
or
it hard enough,
into a place.
yeah.
Right, because that's even, like, the thing in, like, Fight Club, right? Is, like, this idea of, like, oh, well, we have to just move past modern society, and the only way we can do that is by, like, blowing up credit card companies and doing all this damage and being, like, cool, radical guys,
Yeah.
And, like, ultimately what will happen...
that story really is about socialism.
I actually think Fight Club itself, at least the book and the movie conjoined, are about, like, the dangers of orthodoxy and the fact that, like, what's funny about Fight Club is the fact that, like, these young men or these men who join the Fight Club, the reason they're joining the Fight Club is because they feel alienated and depersonalized by an existing social order. But then what they do is they join an order that strips them of name, that shaves their heads, that makes them ultimately be depersonalized and identityless.
You know what my favorite quote from that book is? We are a generation of men raised by women. Mommy issues. Hashtag
number one.
Mommy issues.
Sirens, like red flags,
yeah,
like all that. Yeah.
And you know what the truth is that because I used to do outreach when I did an internship at the QDA, and like the sad truth is that, like, single parenting, especially if you have a single child, is like almost a certain recipe for raising, like, a criminally inclined child, like, unfortunately, because, like, there is a struggle to find, especially if it's a mom-son relationship, there's, like, a struggle to find, like, a meaningful role model for yourself. And so you find it in your peers, so it's highly contingent on who your peers are, right? And I was extremely privileged to, like, have gone to a good school where my peers were all soft boys, basically.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if you grow up and you are a single child to a single parent, where, like, the parenting resources are stretched very thin because most likely they are working crazy hours.
Yeah. And
the public education system resources are stretched even thinner, especially now. Like, you're almost guaranteed to just be inculcated into a gang. Like, this place I went to in Far Rockaway, they like have ambulances stationed outside the school at recess because they always fight. Most people don't matriculate because, and this is not an exaggeration, they just
They just join a gang.
Well, if you feel abandoned by both home and society as a whole, like, what are you fucking supposed to do? Like, if you feel like there's no place for me at home because she or he can't pay attention to me, and there's no place for me in large society because my peers can't relate to me.
No. It's not that your peers can't relate to you. It's that they are probably also in the same position.
Yeah.
And you're all looking at each other for what to do. And, I mean, this is where the Fight Club comes in, is, like... I feel like it just turns into a kind of Lord of the Flies situation where it becomes, like... We don't know what to do in society. We don't fit in. So we do... I don't know, we fight or whatever.
Acts of terrorism, basically.
Acts of terrorism. It's just an expression of, like... my ego so desperately seeks to belong, and the friction starts with, like, I don't know my place.
You're basically like, it should all blow up.
Because, it should all blow up because
there's no future for me or for people like me and society as a whole. Like, I think as typified by even things like Entourage or Sex and the City, it's like society on one level is progressing, and you're seeing, like, oh, look at these fun, cool, hot, sexy people, but at the same time, you might be adjacent to this or parallel, and you're like, that has literally, it's the farthest thing from my experience.
Exactly.
Like, and the fact that it even exists is an affront to me personally. Like
I'm not a philanthropist,
no,
so I will never fuck all the women.
No,
unfortunately.
Like, I'm not a finance guy. I don't even have a path to get in there. Like all these, these women are all having sex with, like, guys who are, like, famous writers or they're, like, well-to-do financial guys. Like, there's clearly a social class that I am not a part of, that I don't even feel like I ever could be a part of. There's no future for me, so it's like I may as well move out to a cabin in the woods, write a manifesto, and start mailing bombs to random
make
people.
bombs. Yeah,
because, like, there's literally, the way I see it, like, in modern society, there's no future forward. And it's like, you know what? In a way, that frustration in a romantic sense is validated to a degree. At the same time, I think what you were saying, like, related to what you said about me, where it's like, romance does end at a point. Like, you have to engage with reality. Like, the beauty of romance, true romance, is ultimately that it unites with reality. And there is a way to wed the two, but it's an incredibly difficult, meticulous process.
There's actually not a way to wed the two. I'm just going to come out and say this because, do you know Jonathan Haidt?
No.
He wrote a book recently that people are talking about, but I know him from a different book called The Happiness Hypothesis, which is a really doofy-sounding book, and it's a doofy-sounding premise, but he does cite this study that says that essentially marriages that don't start in passion last longer, and marriages or romantic engagements that do start very passionate tend to fizzle out. And so I have to imagine that, like, the romantic aspect, because, I mean, it's just like people get, like, the physicality of it gets exhausting and uninteresting, and it becomes rote. And, like, if there's not a meaningful interpersonal match, or you can't, like, work with one another, then of course there's nothing to build on after that. But also, just super quick, I wanted to mention this.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder what the rate of gang activity is in highly socialized countries. Countries that have better public education, better public safety nets. Like, how much more willing are people to engage in crime?
Yeah.
In Denmark, where if you're working as a McDonald's worker, you make more money than a guy with or a girl with an associate's degree in whatever, working in a car assembly line. That is crazy to me. I don't know if I said that last time, but
no, you've talked about this before, but not. Yeah.
It's insane because the federal minimum wage is actually reflective of the rate of inflation. So you can just, and by the way, that is to say nothing about, like, how easy it is to, like, raise a family there, because they have socialized medicine, socialized public education. So you can send your kids to school, you can go get your teeth fixed, and it's not contingent on on whether or not you're
Yeah.
employed in a program that subsidizes your health care. So, like, they probably don't have a version of MS-13 in Denmark. You know what I mean?
No, and if they do, it's definitely probably from outside of the country.
Yeah,
Like, it's
I mean,
probably a foreign intrusion. So
well,
to speak.
if anything, like, they have maybe, like, a nationalist movement, but, you know, that's a different subject. But, like, the point is they don't have, like, these gangs, essentially, that are formed, like, purely out of poverty, out of desperation.
And again, that's the thing is, like, I think ultimately with, like, Incelonomics is this idea of, like, isn't it, like, what you're pointing to is basically, like, there are contributing factors. And, like, again, in, like, the revolutions that have happened, usually they are at the very least precipitated, as far as I've seen, like, again, in scant research, by high levels of debt and poverty in, like, a given country. So when a country's economic situation reaches, like, near cataclysmic levels, that is usually when social change is catalyzed, because these very disparate groups are all feeling like the pressure, and that gives rise to, you know, certain factional elements that eventually, in some cases, like, commandeer, like, the entire structure, and in a few cases, like, commandeer it so destructively, and yet it, ironically or paradoxically, they can commandeer it destructively for a long time, you know, like, and I just think that's interesting, because, like, what are we then facing in a society where there are, again, historically high levels of people who feel alienated and alone? They are more impoverished than, you know, by all metrics, than their parents or even their grandparents ever were. And they are consistently being fed, you know, this kind of, this line, like, this, just this feeding tube of just, like, you're lost, we'll provide you the answer, and the answer is to basically bulldoze or, like, controlled demolitions, the existing social structures, you know, because that's your only way out. There's no way out in the current form of society. The only way out is back, or the only way out is just blow up what exists right now. I basically hope that in the rubble you can assemble some structure that's favorable to you. And what I will say, I'm going to end this on, like, what I'm saying right now.
Okay, I also want to add one more point, though.
Go for it.
I just think, like, in a country where you can be a McDonald's worker and still have a decent apartment, make a decent living, at the end of the day, you just don't feel like a loser, you know? Like, obviously,
you have support.
There will be people who make more money than you, but in a country like this, where we still haven't gotten over this, like, yuppieism.
I have to do it myself. I have to, the temporary disgrace millionaires, you know, it's like,
it's just like I make more money, and therefore it's straight up like your life completely is better, like healthcare, education for your kids.
You said it when we were driving around, like, if you make $100,000 in this country, you're basically golden. Like, that could be the magic number for people, right?
It's not $100,000 you can scrape by, and I mean that.
Which is crazy.
But that's just, like, the truth, right? Like, 100K will, I mean, I don't know, you can live somewhat well, but it's still difficult to save. And certainly if you want to live in the city, I mean, good luck, because what are you going to do with your kid if you decide to have one? My point is like, if you live in a country with socialized institutions, you can just be like a normal working class person, and there's still the possibility of lateral movement for your children without feeling like, I'm poor. Yeah. They are 100 in this country. There is nowhere to go. They go to a shitty school. Maybe they don't even matriculate. Like I said, I met this person at Quaker Church who teaches public school English for 9th grade. And, like, she said that she has a 60% failing rate. That's mad.
That's bad.
And you know what it has to do with largely? They're just not showing up. They just don't come to school. And some of these kids are getting passed anyway.
Why would they care?
Who?
Why would the kids, like, why, like, they're being given every reason in the country to, like, not care, because it's basically being told to them, like, if you don't have support at home, you also don't have support larger community like you're talking about in these more socialized countries. So it's like they feel like that's how gang activity starts. That's where it develops, like finding a purpose or this.
They don't care. It's just that a lot of times they have competing interests.
I want to say gang activity. I mean everything from like the Bloods and the Crips to like the Fight Club like style. Like we're gonna Ted Kaczynski the whole thing.
It's not Bloods and Crips. It's largely just like micro gangs now. But it's just like, again, it's like they see their peers. But again, it's also like they have complicated lives. These poor kids, these underprivileged people. They might have siblings who need daycare, and daycare is too expensive. So, we're just gonna pull you out of class, says the mom, so you can take care of your younger daughter or whatever, or not your younger daughter, but your younger sister or whatever. And it just makes it impossible to do anything with your life because you have all these responsibilities as a young person and I don't know, move to Denmark is my point. Because this little project, or Ireland actually, by the way, also lots of socialized stuff there, and just a good country, just a great place. The guy who made Doom lives there now.
Doom?
Yeah.
The game? Really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know that Dylan Roof and was it Dylan Roof and something Klebold, like the Combine shooters?
Dylan Klebold.
They used Doom to build maps of their school that they would then like practice like shooting drills on.
Wow.
What I do want to say is like one of the last things I'll say.
Wait, did you say Dylan Roof?
Dylan Roof.
Oh, because I also said Dylan Klebold, but I guess
it's
there's
like
probably only one Dylan.
Klebold and Roof, basically.
Okay, let's go with that.
But what I do want to say, and one of the last things I'll say on the topic, and this bleeds.
Let's do cheers.
Let's do a cheers.
Because I'm hungry as well.
Yeah, I'm hungry. We're going to get some shrimp scampi. We got to... Cheers, man. All right.
And Sex in the City. Look forward to that commentary.
Shrimp scampi, Sex in the City. A commentary is coming soon. Tomorrow, or next week, actually. Yeah. What I will say is this. It's like... I love this metaphor. And it's like... corny. My mom told it to me, but it's actually, I think it's kind of cool. And it's this idea that basically, like, in the on the plains of these great United States, there are these herds of these animals called buffalo.
I think I heard of
You've
this.
heard of them, right?
Yeah.
Big.
Some call them bison.
Bison, buffalo. There are these big, cow-looking animals that have huge heads, and they graze on these massive plains.
Yeah.
And these plains have no shelter. Like, they are rolling grasslands. So when a storm comes through, you have two options. You run from the storm.
Wait, as a person or as a bison?
Both, honestly. You have, you don't... Because it's not like there are,
Surely the bison don't care.
Well, the interesting thing about what they do is this, right? Because, when a storm will roll through, what they have seen the bison do is this, a storm will roll through, and there are bad storms on the plains, huge, awful thunderstorms. And there's two options. I guess there's technically three. So you either run from the storm, and you try and avoid it and go around it, which is fair. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You sit it out, so you sit in the same place. And you just hope that the storm isn't that bad. You huddle up. You try to stay warm. Blah blah. Or you go through it. And oftentimes, that's actually what herds of bison, buffalo will do. They will run right through the worst storms, the worst of them. They'll go right through a thunderstorm on these massive plains. Just pelting rain, thunder and lightning. And keep in mind, that when lightning strikes on the plains, nowhere for it to go other than the ground. There aren't trees. There is no cover. It's striking everywhere. It might, in some cases, must be, hellish, quite frankly. But what these buffalo have learned is basically if they all huddle together and they move forward and they charge through the storm, what will happen is eventually they will reach the other side of the storm. Because storms have ends. Storms are just patches of, atmosphere that are acting a certain way.
Tell me more.
So if you go through it, you can end up on the other side.
Wow.
The storm is not forever. So what they'll do is they will charge through the storm. The like the whole herd, the men, the women, and the children. And what will happen is they will actually end
Wait,
up.
the men?
Yeah, like the male bison.
Oh, you said men, women, and children.
Yeah, like the male bison, the female bison. The whole herd goes through. They don't
Well,
leave
you said men, and then I got warm inside. So
you get some little thoughts.
I've got Sex and the City on the brain.
Yeah,
so
it's about that time. To wrap this up, what I'm saying is like they will charge through the storm, and what will actually happen is they'll end up on the other side, and they will end up in a sunny patch of grass that is freshly watered. They will get the freshest grass because they charged through the storm.
right.
Rather than trying to go around it, rather than trying to wait it out, rather than saying like, oh, it's so unfair that this fucking storm is happening, blah blah blah. Like,
Or they just they put on their big boy pants.
dude, it's not even. It's like it's literally like we have a few options, and this like if you want the fresh grass that's watered by the rains of the Great Plains, like you will go
of the Great Plains.
You will go through the storm. So that is no small comfort. You know, you can't look at people who feel like they're in the trenches of their own personal World War I and be like, oh, well, just get through it, it'll be better.
Right.
But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, whoever may be listening, and even
No
just
one.
among us two,
It's just you and me.
like, sometimes the only way out truly is through. You just got to go through it. You got to charge right through it. You got to like.
Well, I mean,
You do, and you may just end up on the other side. No storm lasts forever.
No.
Yes.
No, I feel like some people are genuinely struggling,
I agree,
and they need special attention. And like this is what I feel like I was trying to tell you is like, yeah, just put your head down. This is something everyone can do. Sometimes the storm is actually too much, and sometimes you get struck straight up by lightning, and those.
Yeah,
Bison.
you don't hear about those bison.
Yeah, you don't. You know, and like the thing is though, we can help those people because we do have like therapy and counseling and that stuff, and I just feel like there needs to be more of that in the school systems because chances are, like also this teacher did say like that she called out a school shooter, like she said this kid is unwell. And he went on to I don't think he actually did the school shooting, but he was I don't know, he was like in a tussle or something.
Yeah.
And he brought a fucking gun to school that day, and the gun was in that tussle ejected from him. They later traced it back to him. But like he was maybe planning on shooting some people that day. And we just, like, my point is, like, no, it's not just that simple. Just, like, be a big boy, put your pants on, and go. Because the thing is, James, like, you know, I feel like you expect too much of people. Because we live in times where, you know, there's new pressures on people. Life isn't what it used to be. Like, I think the mental stability, the human mind or brain has to juggle with a lot more anxiety. And of course, my mom will tell you that millennials just always shit themselves, and they're always pissing themselves, and they're always whining and whatever.
They're baby poo-poo heads.
They're baby poo-poo heads, and like, yeah, I have a bad relationship with my mom, okay, blah, blah, blah. But we need like therapy, because, like, you know, all this social media essentially is extending the amount of judgment you have by orders of magnitude. It's not just your peers anymore. It's whoever you decide to... Your friends obviously have social media, so you get social media, and then you say something, and then people you don't even know will fucking pounce on you, right? And then you get defensive. And what do you do when you get defensive? You look to shield yourself and rationalize that person is a dummy. I don't need to reflect on myself. And even worse, when you're a teenager, James, it's like you're at your worst version chemically at that point.
Yeah, you're going through your own personal thunderstorm on the plains.
Exactly. Your own personal life is a ongoing thunderstorm. And what you need then is just like normal friends who are not gonna like who are just gonna be there for you and just like be supportive. But you know what? Being supportive today is gay. So that's why we conga, James.
That is why we conga. We support each other. We challenge each other.
From the hips below.
The line. Yeah, only from the hips.
We never look each other in the eye.
No, because that would be truly gay.
We know we need it, and we do it. And sometimes I'm in front, and sometimes I'm not. But we do it. We support each other, and I mean, no, for real. Like,
Man,
you
there's
know,
wisdom in that. Yeah.
It's just, people sometimes need to hear the truth, and other times they just need to hear. You know what I mean?
Well said.
Yeah, they just need to know that someone's listening, and even if their ideas are crazy or unhinged, you know, that's why we gotta love and be charitable to one another, and like we gotta, you know, just treat a manic episode or a racist episode not as like a complete condemnation
like
of that character.
Yeah.
Just like this person is just like going through something.
It's like a natural event, like a storm. It is something that that can pass, that will pass.
Or like,
you know,
a guy watching Sex in the City for the first time and being frustrated by all the hooers.
Yeah. These ladies.
How dare you have sex with people who are not me?
But hey, ladies and gentlemen, you may pass if you give yourself that first 10 minutes to be like, fucking horse. You may find at the very end that you've actually watched like 8 episodes straight, and you're like, you know what?
Down for more.
You know what? Actually, not a bad life.
Yeah. And on that note,
let's go eat some scampi.
Let's do a high five.
City. High five, bro.
Bang.
Amen.
Yes.
All right. We're out.
We're gonna do a conga now.
We are. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm in back.